talking Memphis wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Hello again, everybody. It is jam-packed. It is jam-packed. We are fired up, and we want to welcome you to this show that's taking place where it's 48 degrees in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It's December the 5th. Can you believe it's December, everybody? And there is so many people in the house so far. I'll start from the bottom and work myself from the top. That BC from YouTube in the house. Ronnie Crowder is in the house. We will jump from the top. It's Mark from Kentucky. Hadn't heard from him in a long time. The Mutilator saying hello. Mark from Kentucky, I've said that. Mutilator, Ronnie Crowder, Greg Wayne, bunch of people. Brandy Dandy Randy West, my best buddy in the world. Greg Campbell, LL's in the house from YouTube. Al Tuttle in the house. I mean, a bunch of folks saying hello as they're coming in faster than I can say it. David Linville in the house. Carlton is in the house. A bunch of people here. And if I've missed somebody, I apologize. Just keep yelling at us and I will eventually say hello to you, as I will say hi to Andrew Calvin Jr. and to Carlton. So many people, it makes my heart feel warm. Now, I'll give you an update, first of all, on the panel today, as Chris Ellis is on the way, or was on the way earlier today, out of town to go to a funeral. Our thoughts and prayers with him as he lost one of his co-workers and was going to the funeral today. Thank the Lord for looking over him as he drives back to Southside Arkansas. Also, Pat Trammell is getting a little off time. He's keeping score at a basketball game. That gets him a stress release type of thing, just like he uses this show for. And Michael St. John will be in the house in just a little bit. The guy that produces this here thing and does such a great job is Adam Dunn. I almost said Randy West. Randy West, when I say producer, I always think of him. But obviously, I couldn't do this show without Adam Dunn. Also, Reese Lewis is in the house. I want to say hello to Reese. You guys at Team Hales, make this thing happen. Is PJ in the house today? I think I saw that Greg Wayne was the very first person in the house for the first time in a long time, and Jeff Frog Wheeler was in the house. I think you'll like this show. I think it's jammed. I think it's packed. I think we're going to talk a lot of stuff. But we're going to start with some breaking news that I saw on Twitter yesterday, and Adam's going to back me up with the pictures so I can read from my phone, and you guys don't see me looking at my phone. We're going to put a picture up. The number one citizen of Oil Trough, Texas, Dirty Dutch Mantell. Yesterday, on a Monday, this is the Facebook post from Dutch Mantell. Okay, guys, here for those who've been looking for me, let me catch everybody up. Thank you for the birthday wishes, but in a nutshell, I've been very sick. They are packages missing and parcels that I've misplaced. But guys, I'll make it good. Just give me time. I've been admitted to a hospital here in Lutz, Florida, where I'll be for a while. I request everybody honor my family's respect to have our own private thoughts. I will respond to all of you privately. And thank you for patience. My daughter Amanda has been helping me. Then his daughter today, actually 18 hours ago, says, hey guys, if anyone is trying to call or text daddy right now, please hold off. He is very sick and needs his rest. I don't know how he managed to get that Facebook post up earlier. I have his phone now. Once he is doing better, I am sure he will contact everybody back. If you need anything urgent, it can wait, or please contact me. If you do have any orders with him, we will get those taken care of as soon as possible. Thanks, Amanda. So we wanted to certainly start the show with that news. And it's concerning that Dutch, who just turned 74 years old, he turned 74 years old last week and is in the hospital now in the state of Florida. And we're just going to pause right now for just a second, maybe about 20 seconds, so everybody can have their private thoughts, and everybody maybe that would choose to say a prayer for Dutch Mantell, who is in the hospital in Florida and has been since yesterday. So we'll take about 20 seconds right now. As Al Tuttle's praying for Dutch, Todd Alexander says hello. PJ praying for Dutch, as is Reese Lewis. My thoughts from LL says thoughts for and prayers as well. Wishes to Dutch Mandel, as does Reese Lewis. He is the number one citizen of Oil Trough, Texas. He is a former Mid America Heavyweight Champion, World Tag Team Champion, Southern Tag Team Champion, Southern Heavyweight Champion, Mid America Champion, and Unified World Heavyweight Champion, the Dirty Dutchman, Dutch Mandel. And Dutch is sick today and is in the hospital in Florida. My buddy from California, Nick Oaks, City by the Bay, is in the house. What is going on, Nicholas Oaks? I hope you're doing very, very good. And we say God bless to you as well. Amen. Thompson, I appreciate those thoughts as well. Now, I'm going to tell you that we got a bunch to do today, and a lot of video to do today, and a lot to talk about today, a lot of wrestling today, and a lot of Memphis wrestling. But like last week, and we had a heavy conversation about football, and we will talk about last weekend's football games, and we'll talk about the championship games and the bowl games and the Final Four and all that stuff coming up at the end of the show. And Todd is talking about not forgetting the bullwhip, and you can't even think about forgetting about the bullwhip when it goes with Dirty Dutch Mandel. David Linville saying, hope you're doing better, RH. And I guess that will lead me into a update on me. And I think we have said that on the other shows. And I will say it now, coming up this next Monday on the 11th day of December. That's one day after my birthday. My birthday is Sunday. You see on the screen that I have surgery in Little Rock on December the 11th. I have a tumor on my back. They're saying it's precancerous, and I have surgery in Little Rock at UAMS. It's Monday, this coming Monday, so it's a week from yesterday. Don't know the time yet, so we'll have that done, have surgery in Little Rock on December the 11th. You know, the timing's not real good for that, because on December the 10th, the day before the 11th, obviously, and I am going to be traveling to Cabot to stay at my niece's on Sunday, December the 10th. RH, good old RH that Tony Falk used to love to call me. RH is turning 62 years old. Appreciate LL and Ronnie and everybody about all the prayers. Al Tuttle, who was big and bad and talking big and bad, and he lives in Georgia. Obviously, he did not like the results of the Georgia-Alabama game. Actually, I didn't like the results of it because Adam lives in Georgia and Al lives in Georgia, but at the same time, Pat lives in Birmingham And also, Michael St. John lives in Arab, Alabama. So I wanted to let everybody know what was going on with me, and that's my birthday. 62 years young on Sunday. Then we'll be headed that afternoon to Cabot, Arkansas, to my nieces, and then, of course, to UAMS Hospital there in Little Rock for surgery on Monday. Probably stay at Cabot at my nieces for a couple of days, and they will bring me back to Jonesboro when she trusts me enough to stay by myself. Hey, this is a loaded show. We started, and that's the first thing that we will talk to Michael St. John, because by God, we have Michael St. John. We don't have Pat Trammell. We don't have Chris Ellis. But from Arab, Alabama, the man's going to tell you what he thinks about the news we heard from Dutch Mantell yesterday on Facebook, confirmed today by his daughter, Amanda. Dutch Mantell, as we are getting notification that Michael St. John has camera issues. So I'm sure Adam is trying to work on that, or Michael is trying to work on that, and it's gone from there. And so, because this is live broadcasting, people, and as it's about 11 minutes after 7, we're doing the best we can to get Michael St. John on here and get on with the show. As Jeff Frog Wheeler talking about the top 4, Mr. Fowler watching from McKenzie, Tennessee. Bill Dundee lived there at one time. It's also Kevin Fowler saying, "What's up, Randy Hales?" And Reese Lewis said, Reese had surgery on the back last Thursday, had a spinal cord stimulator put in, and oh my goodness, recovering already, and prayers for you as well. So much video today, because one of the questions that I'm going to ask you today, as we're getting a lot of comments, and our buddy Brooks Dulles says, "What's wrong with Dutch?" And Dutch says, as long as his daughter to respect their privacy, and they're not saying what's wrong, not saying what's wrong. So I really don't know. Michael Clark says, "Hey Randy, prayers for you." I appreciate that very much. One of the questions that I am going to ask today is, what really hooked you on Memphis wrestling? And for those of you that, like me, been able to live your dreams, what's the first thing that you did that you're very proud of, that there's evidence of, the first thing you did, if you ever were working in the wrestling business? Man, Jeff Frog Wheeler in the house. Nicholas Oates in the house. Nicholas is asking what my match of the year is, and I don't watch a lot of current wrestling, so I'll say the best match I ever saw was Lawler Dundee in June of 1983. Now, this is called a stretch in the TV business, because I've just been going all over the place. We'll start by first thoughts and walking him in, as we've told you about Dutch Mantell being hospitalized, certainly in Florida, and our thoughts and prayers for him. No specific information, just thoughts and prayers for Dutch. And here's my man from Arab, Alabama, and we talked about it last week, but now, bona fide, the Crimson Tide, as there he is. Yes, even though he picked against them, and he'll probably be run out of the Huntsville Arab area, Michael St. John, congratulations. The Final Four, Alabama is going to be there. Georgia is not.
Well, mixed emotions, needless to say. But I think we're going to talk about this ad nauseum later in the program. Is that correct?
Yes, we're going to do like we did last week, and we're going to go over a lot of stuff at the end of the show.
Well, I'll save my football thoughts for then, but great to see you, Randy. I'm glad you got a good report. I know that you're going to have a little procedure done and things are going to turn out well for you, and you got a big birthday coming up, and thank you for having me here, and we're ready to talk some wrestling. I did not know about the Dutch Mantel being hospitalized. Of course, I'm not on Facebook, but I'm on Twitter. But I didn't see anything about it today. But no word as to where or what.
No, and certainly let me reread his daughter Amanda's text. And so if you could help me, Adam, and put that picture of Dutch up there as I read this. Dutch said on a post from yesterday that he was in the hospital, and then just a few hours later, actually I just saw it today, that Amanda, Dutch's daughter, who also lives in Florida, this is what she says. Hey guys, if anyone is trying to call or text daddy right now, please hold off. He is very sick and needs his rest. I don't know how he managed to get that Facebook post up earlier. I have his phone for now. Once he is doing better, I am sure he will contact everyone back. If you need anything urgent, it can wait, or please contact me. If you do have any orders with him, we will get those taken care of. And certainly one of the comments from Dutch, and one of the comments he said yesterday, I request everybody honor my family's respect to have our own private thoughts. I'll respond to all of you later. So certainly Dutch went live with this and made that comment. We appreciate that, thoughts and prayers. So there's not a whole lot for us to talk about Dutch. Obviously, we usually mention him every week, but certainly we wanted to put that out there, Michael, that Dutch is in the hospital and needs prayers.
Well, we certainly want the best for Dutch. He has contributed a lot to our industry and our business. He's very opinionated, as we all know, but that's what makes him lovable, and that's what makes people gravitate to him. And in the ring, I would have to say, of young wrestlers coming into the business about the time I got into the business, to me, Dutch Mantel and Randy Savage were two of the best to ever hit the ropes. And Godspeed, and Dutch, our prayers are with you, buddy.
One of the things is Jeff Frog-Wheeler has a comment. And Jeff, we're not going to talk about football right now. Later on, you can send that message again because it's a smart-ass comment to Michael, and I understand that there's some haters in Alabama. And so Jeff did put that up there, but we will discuss that later in the show as Michael requested. Certainly, we will talk about that, and we'll get the wrestling stuff in. Man, there's just so much going on, and I want to give the people idea on one of the questions that we are putting out there, and it's a twofold question. And the first question, and we talked about it before, is what hooked you on professional wrestling? Most of our audience, certainly Memphis wrestling people, but some people watch other wrestling and from other territories and other part of the country, and we have some modern fans. What first hooked you on wrestling? What was the thing? We're going to show a little bit of first of all of the thing that hooked me on wrestling. I mean, the first thing as a fan, I'm talking to you, Michael, because you've done a lot in this business as I have. And we're starting off just saying our very first memory, and we've talked about it before. Let's share what yours is.
Well, I think I've told the story before. My Uncle John, who was my godfather, was into wrestling and would watch it every Saturday and would walk from my grandfather's house on Walker Avenue in Huntsville down to the Dallas Street Armory. And at first it was the Patton Street Armory, named after General Patton, and they changed it to the Dallas Street Armory. And he would watch the matches there because Nick Goulas would run Nick Goulas, and Jack Welch was the local promoter in Huntsville. And I started watching it with him, and I saw a match. The Fabulous Fargos got me hooked on wrestling because it was in black and white, coming from out of Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday night from the studios of Channel 8 with Smiling Jack Simpson and Gil Green, your commentators. And the Fabulous Fargos took on Joe Scarpa and I want to say Lynn Rossi. And it was one of these wild melees. And at the end of the match, Joe Scarpa hit Jackie Fargo with a sandbag that was holding down one of the ring poles. And it exploded in his face. And so, of course, it blinded Fargo. And it was a melee. And it was one of those things I went, oh, my God, this is, they're showing this on television. And that following Friday night, they had a return grudge match at the Patton Street Army in Huntsville, Alabama. Two top girls and Sailor Moran were on the card, along with the rematch between Scarpa and Rossi and John and Jackie and Sonny Fargo. And after that, that was it. I watched it every Saturday. I learned it was on other channels, and I could catch it on other channels. And this was about 1963 or 4, I guess, when I really got into it.
I appreciate everybody's comments, and that was a great story, Michael. I appreciate everybody giving their first thought about watching professional wrestling and watching Memphis wrestling. Shane Russell, I'm going to speak to him. Shane, I sent a message earlier. Shane, that video that I told you need to see will be the second one I show today, so stand by because we have something that is very important to me. My first memory, of course, at 14 years old, I was ring announcing, but the first television thing I did wasn't even on Channel 5, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the thing that hooked me on professional wrestling was one Saturday morning. This is the first wrestling I ever saw. Just happened to catch Channel 13 wrestling. It's America's favorite sport on WHBQ television. That famous jingle that you heard every week. And there was jingles all over the broadcasting community and radio stations and TV station all over. And I don't know what he's going to say right now. Michael St. John is being forced by me right now without any scripting. I am going to have Michael St. John right now, since I said this America's favorite sport on WHBQ television. And Lance Russell and Dave Brown opened the Channel 13 wrestling show. Michael St. John is going to give you right now an example of another jingle. Here's Michael.
Oh, I wish you'd have given me warning. I got, you don't even know this about me. I am a jingle collector.
Really?
I have over, oh my gosh. I wish I'd had notice of this. I probably have, in fact, I know I have it on this computer. Let me see without messing things up if I can get this.
That's great.
Is this? I'm still on the air or still talking to you, and you can still see me.
Yes.
Let me pull up something here. Okay, let me see what I got here. So you were talking about Memphis, right?
Yes.
Okay, and let me see if I can find something that I have from Memphis in here. Oh man, like I said, had I known that this little thing was going to be presented tonight, I would have been loaded for bear. I can assure you. I'm looking for my WHBQ jingles, and I've got just a ton of stuff in here. But for the moment, I cannot put my hand on that particular jingle.
As Michael, as you're trying to find that jingle, the jingle that I was talking about, Adams found that the Channel 13 wrestling show jingle, and we'll watch this. It's just real short. We'll see this right now.
Okay.
Real quick, short and sweet, America's favorite sports, and you saw the first of that jingle. But obviously, it's interesting to me that you're a collector of jingles, and it's something we don't see, I don't guess, anymore. But it was a mainstream of early broadcasting, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that, I don't think people realize this unless you're in the radio business and know the history, but one of the jingle houses, or jingle, as we call them, jingle plants in America, was in Memphis, Tennessee. And the jingle that you were just singing was by a company known as Pepper Tanner. And they provided jingles to radio and television stations. And they had a neat way of doing it. You could buy a jingle and pay for it by running their advertising or their paid programming on your radio station.
Grade 68 WMPS.
That's Memphis. And
hey, play that again. Play that again. Can you do that?
yeah, let me see if I can go back. I have to play again.
Grade 68 WMPS.
And that was
live as life can be. Unbelievable, Michael. Thank you.
And that is early. That particular jingle probably came out. That was probably 1961, 62. Let me play you another Memphis track.
WREC Memphis.
How's that?
Oh my goodness, explain.
Okay, WREC was an AM station in Memphis. We were on 680 when I programmed WMPS, and WREC was, I believe, 600 on your radio dial. And they were a beautiful music station with a lot of news and information. Very good radio station. And they were in the they were in the lobby and then moved to the basement of the Peabody Hotel.
Adam sending a director's note, and I don't know what this means, but maybe you can explain. He says Wooten Radio Electric Company.
Wooten Radio Electric Company.
You know what that means?
No, I'm not. I am not familiar with that, but I could sit here and literally play jingles. Now, you know, one of the things I'm also, and I've done it all my life, I produced my first package. I went to Dallas when I was a sophomore at Vanderbilt and produced a radio station jingle package for our college radio station. It was the first they ever had at WRVU, Radio Vanderbilt University, and it was sort of it was sort of unique that a college radio station would have a jingle. But I had a morning man, and this was his jingle.
Good morning, world. WRVU, Mickey Metro.
So that was produced by me in Dallas for our morning show, and my good friend Mickey Metro, Scott Davis, who lives in the Chattanooga area, big wrestling fan of Chattanooga wrestling on Channel 12 back in the day. But anyway, we could go jingle. We got to have a show about jingles one night. I'll supply the jingles.
Hey, we will do that. Just live television, live radio. Adam and I talk every day about that. It's so exciting. Now, there will not be, because I will be in Little Rock for my procedure, we will not have a show next week. But when we return and when I recuperate and all that, so hopefully it'll be the week from next Tuesday is my plan. We're going to do a history not only on TV5 wrestling, but WMC TV5. They switched to NBC in 1948, and we've got great video and great stories, and it's just so great history. And we will talk about what Channel 5 meant to professional wrestling. Of course, wrestling started. It's so interesting, and we can get into that. And we'll, in a couple of weeks, I'll do a teaser that Channel 5, way back in the day, had a remote truck. So they'd send a truck to the old Ellis Auditorium, which later became the Cook Convention Center, and they would do the Monday night matches. That didn't last long. Then it went to Channel 13. Then Channel 13 had a home for many, many years. Then back in 1977, of course, the wrestling show moved to Channel 5 where it stayed to 2001. So great history there. Randy Dandy is in the house, and he really liked our jingle deal. He pops. He says, good old jingles. We do lay out the show. We do, people. We prepare with notes and all that sort of thing. But the great thing about live, we take this show. Sometimes it's driven by Michael, by Pat, by Chris, by me, by the audience, by something's just coming out. How this whole deal about jingles came up was I was about to tell you the deal that got me hooked on Memphis wrestling. I'll still tell that story, but then I sang the jingle as I was leading it into my story, and then Michael says, I'm the jingle man, and we went to that same bet, and It sounds almost like it's rehearsed. Michael, we did not lay this out in advance in any way. We just went with it, right?
Randy, I had no clue. I mean, I'm doing this on the fly. I had no clue that we were even going to talk about this, but it's fun to do so. We got Randy in Hendersonville. I don't think he lives in Hendersonville anymore, but I know
He
Oh,
does.
does he? Oh, does he? Well, then I
Sure.
gotta play him something here real quick, just real.
Stand by, Randy West. Stand by, Randy West. Michael St. John has
Yeah.
something for you. Stand by, Randy West. Go ahead.
All right, let me see if I can pull this up without blowing everything up here. It's not doing. It's locked up. Oh, okay. Here we go. Yep. Look for him. Okay. Well, it's not doing it. Let me close out here. Sorry about that. This is, like you say, it's on the fly. Here we go. One more time. One last try on this. Let's see if we can make it happen. Let's see. I found it. Where did it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I had to close out and now reopen, and that's always tough. Here we go. The tone, the beloved tone.
The beloved tone.
Yep.
Kicks 106.
That's Birmingham. Sorry about that. All right. Well, we'll get back to this. I'll do a better job on this. I promise, in weeks to come. I promise you that. Back to the subject matter.
Back to the subject matter. What hooked us in wrestling? I'm going to tell you what hooked me in wrestling. I think one of Jerry Jarrett's most genius ideas, two of his best ever ideas, was the Road to Gold story with Jerry Lawler's quest for the world title, and also the match that led to the first sellout at the Mid-South Coliseum. I happened to be watching that television on Channel 13 for the very first time, and I saw Al Green asked Jackie Fargo for a hair versus hair match. Fargo says, you have brothers, you have managers, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put my hair at stake. Al Green then came out on an interview and said, your dad, who had just died as they shoot, and it had been told the story on television weeks before Fargo had lost his dad. Well, Al Green called Jackie Fargo's dad a coward. You're dead, drunk, coward. Fargo came out. Al took a hike. Fargo did a crying interview and agreed to the hair versus hair match. I'll tell you right away, 2 out of 3 fall match. We're going to show the first fall. At the end of the night, Fargo ended up getting his hair shaved. Our mics will be hot, and this is a 10-minute video. Then Shane Russell got a video. I want you to see a Lance Russell video that's very important to my career, big time. That's video number 2 after we reset it, after we watch Al Green, Jackie Fargo, loser leave town match, August of 1972, the very first sellout for wrestling at the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum. Right, I'm done. We'll play now on Talking Electricity. And because there's no commentary here, the ring announcing is from Dave Brown, and there's no commentary play-by-play. So we're going to have to fill in as we see the atmosphere of 10,600 people at a sold-out Mid-South Coliseum. So this is not the production values, Michael, you see today on USA Network, on Fox, on TNT, or TBS, is it?
Well, this is what you would call the B-roll, or what you would call, this is a live in-person kind of thing, like you said, from the live truck. This is just raw footage of the match itself. Of course, that's Al Green in the ring, and you mentioned Dave Brown, a very young Dave Brown, fresh off of his days on WHBQ radio and MTV, and now here comes the fabulous Fargo. Look at this entourage.
And Michael, these are the days the young fans today won't get it. This thing, that couldn't be a star. He's coming out without music. Well, they didn't use music before, and this guy was star enough to sell out this building, almost 11,000 people. And in 1972, tell me a bigger star in the Memphis wrestling world, Michael, than Jackie Fargo.
At this point in time, at this point in the history of Memphis, there was none. Listen to Dave.
If Al Lee loses the match, you will get $50 a certified check for $5,000. His brother Ron Green will lose his U.S. Junior Heavyweight Championship belt. And Al Green, Don Green, and Steve Clements are free to come bring forward.
This group, you don't need music if you're over.
When was the last time you saw this in a match? The referee checks the wrestlers,
I mean,
explains the rules. They never do this anymore.
And it's realistic. When have you seen anything realistic?
Good question, Randy. I've seen some stupid this week on videos from wrestling shows.
Jeff Wheeler is giving you instructions. I guess he thinks he produces this show. He wants you to call this match.
Wow. Thanks, Jeff. The fabulous Jackie Fargo and Mean Al Green, one half of the brother team of Don and Al Green. I believe at this point was Sir Clements their manager, Randy?
Yes, and at this point, Sir Steve Clements, the manager, was banned, and brother Don was banned from ringside. If Jackie Fargo won, Al Green and Don Green and Sir Clements would all have to leave town.
And Fargo went right for the atomic drop to start the match. Fargo went right for the atomic drop, and then instead of covering him, he jumped on him and started punching him. And Al Green took a powder to the floor. But again, these are two wrestlers. They don't get in there. They don't jump around. They're not hitting the ropes right away. They're not doing any flippy flop. They're checking each other out. They lock up collar and elbow, standard wrestling hold. Well, Green throws a punch. Fargo ducks, and Green goes over the ropes. That's a high spot. And again, the pace of the match is like two professional amateur athletes checking each other out, looking for an opportunity for a soft spot in the armor, if you would, to go after it. Look how Fargo, look how here's Green. He's sort of pacing at Fargo. Fargo swings, Don backs off. I mean, again, the psychology, it's telling a story. It's not a bunch of trapeze artists. And Don Green punching at Al Green punching at the fabulous one. And Fargo, now they go fisticuffs right here in the match. Fargo gets the best of Al Green, and what does he do? Boom, right to the floor. At this point in time, these two guys were at the peak of their careers, Randy.
Absolutely. And I am telling you, as Adam was asking, and I am not sure in 1972 who was filming this. It would have been filmed, and Adam was asking if it was Mike Shields, and so Michael St. John is saying that it was Mike Shields. I didn't know Mike was working for the company in 72, Michael.
Yes, he was. I can verify that he was. And, of course, Fargo and Al Green going back. This was also the point where the Memphis territory was still the very heartbeat of the west side, if you would, of the Gulas Welch territory. And it was its own wrestling center, if you would, just like Nashville was. And the shows ran around the boys that lived in Nashville. And a lot of these boys live. In fact, I think Fargo at this point was living in Memphis. Fargo with a punch to the stomach. He throws another one, misses it, goes to the floor.
I think.
Look at him sell his fist, like he fell on his fist.
I think if we just discuss stuff that done here that's not done today, and vice versa, stuff's done today that wasn't done, and the basic thing, the spotlight of the people is this match, and this match was not for television. It's for the live event, over 10,000 people, and this is as all main events were in that time, Michael, 2 out of 3 fall match. And watch the selling. One of the things that's just missing from our business, our sport these days, Fargo comes up, he nails Green, Green takes a bump, but did you see what Jackie did? Jackie had been beat up, so he went to the ground. This is absolutely brilliant.
And then Al Green is working on his head, and I don't know if he's working hard way to get juice, because if I'm not mistaken, in this match, later on in this match, or at some point in this match, somebody got juice, and if not both of them, I think Fargo was bloody when he got his hair cut, if I'm not mistaken.
And I don't think we'll see that. I just loaded one fall to answer Greg's question. I think John Ed, I think that's who you're referring to, was the bell ringer, and I think that's who was there at the table. Good shot there. Michael, is that not beautiful?
It is. Look at that wide shot. Look at the simplicity of the ring, though. There's no ring skirt on the ring. You have a ladder going in. You have steps going into the ring. It's a high spot ring, I believe they call it, because it's like 18 inches off, or 2 feet off the ground. I mean, this is it's perfect. It's a perfect picture of what professional wrestling was in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s.
This was August 1972, and after a year of running the Mid-South Coliseum, this is the first sellout. 10,600 people. People asked why later on they could have 11,700 people. Those are nights, Michael, when the fire department, the fire inspector wasn't there.
Exactly.
They just would go ahead, for sure.
Also, look at the sell. Look at Al Green selling like a son of a gun. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Fargo get the pin. So the first fall goes to Fargo, and of course, look at this. This is on film. This isn't videotape, folks. This is film. Fargo gets the win, but Fargo is staggering. I think he's been busted open too. So Fargo gets the win, but he's staggering around the ring to regain his composure. And they won't go to the locker room, I don't think. I think they'll stay in the ring area for the second fall. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they go to the locker room.
No, they both go to the locker room there. Again, you can look up. No time limit, no disqualification. Jackie Fargo versus Al Green hair match, and you can see all 3 falls. That is a closing picture there as we see it, Michael. Again, I use the word beautiful. And you see how hectic it is, and you see the Memphis Police Department walking back to the dressing room with Al Green. It's just tremendous, and it was a 10,600 or so people that sold out the Mid-South Coliseum, and they ended up doing 4 or 5 sellouts. I'm going to do my part and load something up to watch next. So if you want to follow up what we just saw, whatever you want to discuss right now, you can. But I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did bringing it to you guys.
I'll tell you, that's a treat, fans. Folks that are watching and listening out to me, you pull one out of the archives of that nature. I mean, that is history in itself, and it's great to see something from 1972 here in 2023. That's 51 years ago, and that's amazing. It's amazing quality that still exists. And by the way, to Adam, our producer, I got your note about Wooten Radio and Electric Company. I never knew that's what WREC stood for. But WMPS stood for the Memphis. Of course, W call letters east of the Mississippi, K calls west of the Mississippi as the opening letter in the call letter. WMPS stood for the Memphis Press-Simeter, which was the afternoon newspaper in Memphis, Tennessee for many, many years. And of course, the Memphis Commercial Appeal being the morning and the lead newspaper in the Bluff City as it still remains.
I think I might have unloaded, as Adam says, WMC was Memphis Commercial. I'm afraid I've uploaded the wrong thing. I wanted Shane to watch. Go ahead. What I have, I think this is wrong, and we'll come after if it's not. Whatever I have up there right now, go ahead and play it. And I think this is wrong. It is wrong. So at this point, we are going to go with our flashback to our cards, as this is live as live can be, people. And we want to start with a card. And Adam, in the clip area, it is in the picture section. We're going to start with 2292. 2292. So if you can go ahead and put that up there. This card, Michael, goes back to Jackson, Tennessee in 1972, and it's a 4-match card. It's Ron Klein against Jimmy Kent, Tommy Gilbert against Corsica Joe, Saul Weingroff against Jerry Jarrett, and the main event was Carl and Kurt Von Bronner versus Tojo Yamamoto and Eddie Marlin, who later in 1974 won the Southern Tag Team Championship from Al Green and Phil Hickerson. This was a card on a Wednesday in Jackson, Tennessee. Your thoughts on this card, Michael St. John?
Well, for the card at that time in period of wrestling is a loaded card. The opening match is, of course, Jimmy Kent, who was a manager, taking on Ron Klein, who I would think would probably be somebody just breaking into the business. Tommy Gilbert from right up the road in Lexington, Tennessee, against Corsica Joe, a veteran. Of course, the famous tag team that ran rampage over this territory in the late 50s and early 60s was the tag team of the Corsicans, Corsica Joe and Corsica Gene. And Corsica Gene ended up being Gypsy Joe. So, you know, that's a standout match. Saul Weingroff, Jerry Jarrett, there had to be a reason behind that. Saul Weingroff, the manager of the Von Bronners. I would think that at some point, Jerry Jarrett was hurt by Weingroff, and Eddie Marlin, who later was his father-in-law, of course, stepped in with Tojo, because Tojo Yamamoto and Jerry Jarrett were the tag team back then, as you can see in the picture. And the main event was, I would take it the main event would probably be 2 out of 3 falls as well at this period of time.
Yes. A lot of times they would do 2 out of 3 fall match, and the opening match normally was somebody from the main event, a captain's match in the single match.
That's right.
That's normally what they did.
And that would be a windfall match.
I apologize to Shane Russell, because even though I'm clicking on the video that I have stored and it plainly says Randy Hales, Lance Russell, the Randy Hales Show, but it is, maybe Adam we can get back to it and he can give me another option to get to that, but certainly it's not working for me right now. We want to go with another card, and we're going to jump a few years. I think people really enjoy our blast from the past. We're going to look at December the 2nd, 1975. It's 2281, Adam, 2281. We will go to December the 2nd, 1975. This is the Louisville Gardens in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's just so amazing. It's a 4-match card at the Louisville Gardens. The ticket prices for this card was $250, $350, and $4 on December the 2nd, 1975. The opening match was Pistol Pez Watley against Mr. Arakawa. The second match was David Schultz and Dick Dunn against Don Green and Bill Superstar Dundee. The third match was a grudge match between Jerry Jarrett and for the early 70s, from 71, 72, 73, the most popular babyface in the company was Jerry Jarrett. So Jerry Lawler, Jerry Jarrett on December the 2nd, 1975. That card, and that was the semifinal match. And the main event of the night was Bill Hickerson and Dennis Condrey against the team of Jackie Fargo and Roughhouse Fargo. And somebody writing said, for Jeff's question, WEVL is 89.9, FM 90, WELB, the Weave, but it's volunteer radio, so call is for WE volunteer, and that is Jeff's question for that station there. And before we get back to that card that we just looked at in Louisville in 1975, Michael, do you have anything to add to Jeff's reigns? And Jeff, we appreciate you asking the question here on Talking Memphis Wrestling. You have anything to say to that?
Well, WEVL was on the educational band at 89, non-commercial at 89.9. And it is volunteer. And I always thought it stood for We Volunteer because it was and if I'm not mistaken, it was owned by either one of the colleges or the public library, maybe. But it had a good signal and did primarily programming that was, of course, non-commercial. They'd have some talk, they'd have some music, they'd have some news and so forth and so on. Getting back to that card at the Louisville Gardens, it was 75. I'm wondering what year it was when Jackie Fargo, because Sonny Fargo was a referee over in the Crockett territory in the Carolinas. And I don't know what year exactly they began calling Sonny Fargo in this area, because he had been Sonny Fargo throughout the 60s and into the early 70s with Jackie. And then when he went to the Carolinas, and Don Fargo came back for a while and tagged with Jackie. I'm wondering at what point did they start calling him Roughhouse? And I want to say roughly it was around 1973 or 74. But it was unique to see Roughhouse Fargo. That was December 2nd of 1975. That was 6 days before my oldest son was born. And I was living in Birmingham at the time.
That's very interesting. And I agree with you that probably Roughhouse Fargo was born as far as a character, as far as the Crazy Brothers brought in from the Nut House, one of the most famous characters ever in Memphis wrestling. There is no doubt about it. They didn't overdo it. People would get tired of him. Maybe if it was an every week thing, they were just smart enough to do that. We have a couple of more cards, and this is moving up to 1980. This is Thursday, November the 6th, 1980. This is number 2289, Adam, 2289. And the first match on this card, and this is from, I always love this ad, Michael. I just love, because it really stands out. It's professional wrestling at Rupp Arena, Thursday, November the 6th, 1980. And the card is this: Rick Morton against Guy Mitchell, Larry Latham against Tony Charles, Handsome Jimmy Valiant against Dr. Bill Irwin, Bill Superstar Dundee against Bobby Eaton. Then the fifth match was Bill Dundee, Tony Charles, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Ken Lucas, and Rick Morton against Sonny King, Bill Irwin, Guy Mitchell, Larry Latham, and Bobby Eaton. The sixth match was Jerry Lawler, who had been out all year long with a broken leg. He came back and wrestled Jimmy Hart in a single match. And then the final match of the evening was a Southern title match, Austin Idol, the Universal Heartthrob, against Tommy Rich for the Southern title. This was Thursday, November the 6th, 1980. Your thoughts just on this newspaper ad? Because to me, it really stands out as well as any newspaper ad I've ever seen, Michael. And Michael, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Jerry Lawler is sort of in a pose, like a pose you'd take at a photo studio, but it's well laid out. The Lexington Herald does a great job of all their ads, even to this day, are laid out well. But I like about it, it's clean. You got the information in the middle, and you got the eye candy, if you would, the pictures on either side. So it's well laid out. And just in looking at that card, I would have to say that it probably did really good business. Dr. Bill Irwin, I think, was either on his way from or on his way back to Dallas, because he was a star out in the Texas territory. And I'm not familiar with is it Guy Mitchell? I think was that his name that was on the card.
Yeah, Stomper Guy Mitchell.
Stomper.
He was a veteran wrestler. And I want to ask a question from Justin Dar. Says, why did Rupp Arena have better cards than the Mid-South Coliseum? And they didn't have, on a normal basis. But the thing you have to remember is that the Mid-South Coliseum ran every single Monday night, 50 times a year. The Rupp Arena ran one time a month, once a month. So, in other words, you had one card that told 4 weeks worth of story, and at the Mid-South Coliseum, you had to tell a story every week. However, in general, the better cards were at the Mid-South Coliseum. We're doing today have not showed Mid-South Coliseum cards. We have showed Jackson, Tennessee cards and Louisville cards, and certainly that Rupp Arena card that is so very, very, very just loaded. Everything's loaded. One of the thoughts I have from my producer notes, Lawler thought for a time that he wanted to become a radio broadcaster, and he was a night disc jockey for KWAM 990 in Memphis, Tennessee. Did you hear much about Lawler potentially wanting a radio career? That's how he got hooked with Michael, with Lawler.
Yeah, actually, he was on the air. Fargo put him on the air. Jackie was working at KWAM in Memphis, which was an AM country station, and it was, excuse my expression, it was hillbilly country back then, and it was on the high end of the AM band. It had a directional signal. The towers were out in the middle of the swamp and the Delta, marshy land out there, which made it get out good. But it was directional, and it didn't hit most of Memphis at night. It missed, the larger population of Memphis. But Fargo worked there and did afternoons for several years, and that's how Lawler, started working part-time over there and got on the air. Jerry Lawler, he could have been as good of a radio person and a DJ as he is a professional wrestler, because he's just that daggum talented. And that says a lot for the man.
Michael, as I'm looking for video, if you could catch us up right now, and Adam can help you with the backup, if you could help us out by referring to some of Team Hales that's making comments. If you could comment on some of the comments that we have posted.
It says Eddie Bond and Jack recorded several songs. I'm not so sure where that's coming from. I don't have the whole rundown here. Okay, there's the Rupp Arena thing. It says my only attendance on Monday night was in the 88 or 89 when Lawler was feuding with the Von Erichs. The card had a very young Dustin Reynolds, who was, of course, doing the cowboy gimmick. That was, of course, Dusty Rhodes' oldest son. And I'm not familiar with Eddie Bond, so folks, you'll have to fill me in on that. But apparently Jeff had sent you the songs of it. that Eddie Braun and Jackie Fargo recorded together. In comparing, what's funny of Memphis wrestling, music's a very big part of the history of Memphis, Tennessee. We all know that from back in the days of the blues to the Sun recording studios and several more Bright Star recording studios and so forth. But, the funny thing is if you were a wrestler in Memphis, sooner or later, they were going to get you to cut a record. And you look at Jimmy Hart, who was a musician with the Gentrys and a very good singer to begin with. And he continued his career even once he was hot as a wrestling manager. Lawler recorded a song, Jackie Fargo recorded a song. If I'm not mistaken, I think I heard somewhere that Bill Dundee recorded a song over there. So the music studios in Memphis, the proliferation of music studios led to the music being incorporated into Memphis, which ironically enough led to the first music video in wrestling that I ever saw. There's the Eddie Bond with the stars of Channel 13's Country Shindig. So Eddie Bond was what we would have down here in Alabama. Country Boy Eddie was who we had on the air at Channel 6 in Birmingham. So Eddie Bond was probably the Country Boy Eddie character. It seems like every TV station had one of those country music shows in the morning. And I know they had that in Nashville as well. But getting back to it, when, music videos first got introduced, and I dare say that our good friend Randy West, of course, produced the absolute best of them, period. I mean, I see music videos today, and Randy, I think, had another career in music video production if he ever wanted it. But that was unique to Memphis. And I'm sort of thinking that the wrestlers that cut records back in the 60s and 70s led into that fact that we had an introduction of music videos on Memphis wrestling, first in the country.
We're going to go ahead and take a look at another card. And I have Adam because I really certainly invited Shane to watch this show. And again, it's showing me that I have it loaded, but then when I click on it, it shows me a Scott Bowden thing that we showed 100 times. So I asked Adam to search for that, and maybe we can watch that later. But right now, I want to go to another card. The territory had been down for a couple of months, and they made some big changes. This card we're going to look at is labeled Adam 2303. It's from December the 5th, 1983. It's right before a big talent swap. And it was right at a time, again, the territory was down. Jerry Lawler was booking. This card is just absolutely loaded with people. About 34 people on the card. It's crazy. It is a huge card. It's December the 5th, 1983. Lance Russell came to me at the end as it was a $40,000 house that was the best house in months. And Lance Russell came up to me and said, "Kid, we're watching the end of our business." I said, "Lance, we just did $40,000. He said it took 2 stars from national television, the Superstation, the Road Warriors, to draw that $40,000 house. This business will never be the same." So this card, and we're going to really deep dive in this card because after Michael comments to the card, after I read it, I'm going to explain, because I've had to figure wrestlers' payoffs, know the formula, that sort of thing. And I'm not saying this is going to be what the payoffs were. With the formula, I wrote the card down and I did a payoff sheet based on the house and the percentage. And I thought it would be interesting to look at that today. But looking at December the 5th, 1983, in a triple main event of 40,000 people at $40,000, not 40,000 people. And that card is Buddy Landell against Angelo Popo. The Grapplers versus the Jaguar, who was Danny Davis, and Plowboy Frazier. The grapplers were Lynn Denton and Tony Anthony. The next match was a 12-man, $5,000 challenge. Listen to this talent. Listen to this whole card. It was the Moondogs, the A-Team, which was Don Bass and Roger Smith, the Bruise Brothers, who was the Dream Machine, and Pork Chop Cash, Terry Taylor, Beautiful Bobby Eaton, Stagger Lee, who was Coco Ware, Robert Gibson, Art Cruz, and Tom Pritchard. That was the third match of the night. The fourth match was a U.S. junior title match, Superstar Bill Dundee versus Rick Morton. Then it was Dutch Mantell and Austin Idol against Dennis Condrey and Norvell Austin. The sixth match of the triple main event was the Road Warriors' first appearance at the Mid-South Coliseum against the Fabulous Ones. It was a double disqualification. And the main event, the debut appearance in Memphis of Randy Macho Man Savage, lost by disqualification to Jerry Lawler in the main event. $40,000, 8,200 people, absolutely amazing. Before we deep dive into the payoffs, I've been told that the video just was not wrong. It just started. So we do have that video on standby. But that amazing card, and we're going to deep dive. I don't know how much, Michael, that you were aware of the formula and you talked a lot or heard a lot of talk about figuring payoffs. We will deep dive and dissect that in a few minutes. But I just want you to deep dive and dissect that not great card. And if you need the reference from the card, call for it, and Adam will put it up for you.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea because that's a lot of talk. That's a lot to remember on that card. You know, the amazing fact, 34 wrestlers on a show back in that period of time was unheard of. I mean, you know, you would go to a see a pay-per-view or go to a main event blow-off show in a Dallas or a St. Louis or whatever, and you wouldn't see 34 workers. You wouldn't see 34 athletes competing. So that was a large number of people that were on that card. But as far as the quality of that card, look at how many of those stars went on to be big in the national scene, whether with the NWA, with WCW, or with the WWE. I mean, that's in itself mind-boggling when you see that. But a $40,000 house in Memphis, Tennessee. And how prophetic was Lance Russell about that? Because he knew the power of a TV station that could be piped in, not on an antenna, but could be piped into your house on a cable box or on a wire, and what it could do potentially nationwide. And he was 100% correct. And I always heard that one of the worst part of the early days of national television with Turner was the travel. And especially when he started going to Ohio and the Sheik's territory and West Virginia, and then he went on further up into northern Illinois and southern Michigan. I mean, there's a lot of riding back there. They didn't, a majority of them didn't fly, even though Crockett had his own plane for that territory. The majority of the boys still drove to the towns. Well, I guess I'm reading notes that are being passed out that are not intended for me, but I'll watch it anyway. I guess I was supposed to stretch a little further on that, Randy. Sorry about that.
What was your thoughts on Randy Savage's first appearance? Because I'm sure you heard all the history of Savage and the promotional war with ICW.
Well, you got to realize that this is after the altercation with Bill Dundee in the parking lot in Hendersonville, Tennessee, at a gymnasium where guns were drawn and fists were thrown and the whole 9 yards. Hands were thrown. You know, for Randy to come into the territory, he had to do, I'm sure, some tall talking and some guaranteeing especially with Jerry Jarrett, being that Jerry was very loyal. That's the one thing about Jerry. He was very loyal to his boys back then, whether it was Lawler or Dundee or whatever. He protected his guys, and to have somebody to the nature of Randy come in. But this was Randy's last stepping stone, his last diving board or trampoline into the WWE or the WWF at that time. So Randy was pretty much coming to his own as a star. You talk about outlaw groups and stars that come out of outlaw territories or independents. Randy Savage may have been one of the first back in the day, because the Poffos ran opposition to just about anybody they could find, whether it was Memphis or Nashville or Lexington or the Appalachia. I'll never forget the road trip I took with them, leaving on a Friday and coming back on a Sunday. And I only went one time because they wanted to film a bunch of the stuff and do some commentary on it. But, to appear in Hazard and what was the other town over there? Not Princeton, but Harlan and Hazard. And I forget the other name of the community over there. And then end up in Big Stone Gap, West Virginia, and then into West Virginia, and then turn around and come home doing 2 shows a day. And it was rough road work, and they were an independent company. They were going up against the boys in Knoxville and going up against Jerry Jarrett, whether it be in Lexington or Jerry Jarrett's territory. He got so popular and so hot that I don't think he could cover all the areas, because how many towns were there running double towns on a given night, Randy? I know. Birmingham, Memphis were on Monday night, and you start adding Chattanooga and Knoxville and Lexington and other big cities, Evansville, of course, Nashville. I mean, that was a pretty big territory to cover even back then.
It was a tremendous territory, and that December the 5th, 1983 was just so important. The Road Warriors' first appearance. How many people on the card and just the talent? Now, that's right before the end of the year. That's when the talent swap happened. And that's when Bill Dundee left for Mid-South Wrestling for Bill Watts to take over the booking. This is the people they left: Buddy Landell, Terry Taylor, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Bill Dundee, and Jim Cornette. Who we got was multiple people. The one person that hit big was Ravishing Rick Root. There was others that came in, but that's just that card. And Randy Savage was here all of 84 into 85. Was babyface, was heel, drew a tremendous lot of money, and even though had the reputation of being opposition, but one of the most professional guys we've ever seen. We're going to do a little timeout right now, and I hope Shane, let us know if you're still on, because I want to set up this thing, and this is rather lengthy, but I think it's very important to tell the Randy Hales story, which we do on this show, and to show something that was my very first television thing, even though it wasn't Channel 5. I decided, even though I was already ring announcing in Jonesboro, Blytheville, Tupelo, in Memphis, at the Mid-South Coliseum, every other match. I do a match, Lance does a match, I do a match, Lance do a match. We did that. And, of course, every Saturday in Jonesboro, sometime I'd go to Blytheville. But I decided to go for college to Arkansas State University, where I was going to major in radio television. As a little boy before wrestling, my dream, my goal in life as a 10-year-old was to be a radio disc jockey. I used to carry around a banana or a pencil or something. Just Randy Hales on AM 70, whatever it was, and would do that all the time. Then when it went to television, I had the basic introduction to broadcasting, and then the TV production, radio production, all kinds of stuff, television advertising, radio advertising, communication law, all the classes that you have to do with the degree in radio television. but we had a TV production class. The professor's name was Chan, Chan Cheslick. Anyway, weird name. I can still mention where he lived. So we had a project that was 90% of our grade. And the project was we had to produce our own show. Our own show. It was a 30-minute show that would be aired on a cable TV station, Channel 12, that was called KASU, Arkansas State University TV. And it was a show that was aired once a week at 4:30. So we had to produce a show. So we decided the subject, the producer, every student had to do this as a grade, and it was accounted for 90% of the grade. So I wanted to do a show based on my passion and love of wrestling. I wanted to do a look at pro wrestling, and I wanted Lance Russell to come over and be my guest. And so he came out, and I got permission. I went to Randy West's house in Hendersonville. Randy, I think you lived on Safely way back in the day before you moved to Cumberland Hills Drive. It was a long time ago. And you let me have some music videos, and we won't show any of that today. This is not on that clip. So I interviewed probably a 20-year-old Randy Hales on his first hosting job. Exactly what I'm doing right now. Exactly what I'm doing right now. But then for the first and only time in my life, the dadgum instructor made me put freaking makeup on. I'd never done that before, never done it after. Lance did it on a regular basis. So let's talk about makeup. Did you ever use television makeup, Michael?
Oh, absolutely. With this ugly face, are you kidding me? Absolutely. And to be honest with you, if I had any on Tuesday nights, part of the whole thing with makeup is this shine. You see it when you look up in the lights, how this shines and you get a glow, Well, the base makeup takes that sheen, that shine away. And it covers up small wrinkles and all that stuff for close-ups. But mainly makeup is used on TV to diminish the effect of the lights. You need the bright lights to make a clear picture, but the bright lights also make you sweat and also make you greasy, for the lack of another term. So that's why the makeup is used, but absolutely. And the part when I was doing the TV shoots in Dallas for the for USWA and the ESPN had their own, they hired a makeup girl there in Dallas to do your makeup. And she was really good. I mean, she'd take 20, 25 minutes with everybody. And I mean, everybody had to look the part. And then when you were shooting the show during a break, or if you had to throw to a video or something, she'd come out, she'd have a little puff, and she'd say, well, you're shining here. And she'd take some powder and powder you up right there. But when I was on the TBS show in Atlanta with Gordon that day, they required makeup, and all of the pay-per-views that we did, the big showdown on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi that we did in Bay St. Louis, the Legends of Wrestling wore makeup. The hard part about makeup is the longer you're under the lights, it tends to dry your skin. So at the end of the night, you have to use a remover. You can't use just soap and water because that makes it drier. You have to use an oil-based remover to get that out of you. And then you go to bed smelling like a loaf of olive bread. And it's makeup isn't easy. For me, it was necessary, but it wasn't easy. And God forbid if I tried to, I always had my wife or a hot girlfriend that would put my makeup on if I had to have it, at a spot show or something. But I'm not very good on makeup.
We're going to go ahead and remember, I was just a kid. Don't make fun of me, and our mics will be hot. And as if Michael at the time, obviously, I am what I am now. I was the kid then, and I will give the end of the story. This was 90% of our grade, and there was like 23 people in the class. I got the best grade that the teacher ever gave in that thing. However, when I told him my subject matter and what I was going to do, and he says, who's going to host the show? He said, who are you going to have host the show? I said, I'm going to host the show. And he said, I always tell everybody the producer who stars in the show is an idiot. I said, well, he said, I can't let you do that. And I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, my guest that's coming is a broadcasting legend who I have a extreme good relationship with. The only reason he would come is for me, first of all. The second of all, the only one in the whole class that knows him and knows his career is me. I said, so I agree with you. If I was interviewing a doctor, I would have somebody, a medical student, somebody interested in medical do it. I said, believe me on this, there's nobody on this campus that can do this interview as well as me and will get the chemistry that the two of us will have together. Nobody in this town, I can assure you. So he trusted me and he said, you're right. And I got the best grade he ever gave. And we'll watch that video in progress right now and just go all the way through it and then come back with Michael St. John's comment. Don't know if we've ever shown it on here before. Have you ever seen this, Michael?
I don't think I have. No.
Okay. Your mic will be hot. You'll probably take over from me right now. Start asking Lance questions. Here we go.
Randy Hales auditioned for a big grade.
When we're taking a look at professional wrestling, Lance, how did you get into being a wrestling announcer?
Well, I'd done sports, Randy, the football, basketball, baseball, boxing bit, and it so happened that a station that I was working at the time was in Jackson, Tennessee, and they started carrying wrestling, and I guess the most natural thing in the world was, because I'd done all of the others, they said, can you do wrestling? I said, why not? And that was the start, and so I've been doing it a long time since then.
Well, how did you get into, I know that at one time you were program director for WHBQ Television, and now I understand you work full-time for Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, I put in 20 years with RKO General, enjoyable time, and I had a lot of headaches as you'll run into in some of the management parts of broadcasting, and then the opportunity came to combine the fact of the television experience with the wrestling experience. All the time that even after I stopped announcing full-time, when I was a salesman and then became a director of programming and all, I still did wrestling in some other sports, and so I just decided it was a good time to go into it full-time, and I'm glad I did.
I know you told me one time that you are really liking doing what you're doing now better than anything you've done in your entire career.
It gives me the opportunity to do both of them. I love broadcasting, so that I call on stations and I sell our wrestling program to stations that are interested in carrying it, and still do the broadcast. So it keeps me in touch with the broadcasting, but at the same time, in all the years, I still love wrestling. I'm just like a fan, man. I just love going to the matches and seeing the matches and all that, and it gives me that opportunity to combine both of them. So nobody could ask for a whole lot more than that.
How much traveling do you do? I know you go around seeing a lot of wrestling all over the country. How much are you on the road?
Nowhere near as much as the wrestlers do. And you know, that's the thing, that every week goes by, at least a dozen different young gentlemen or young ladies also, and you'd be surprised at how many of them are interested in getting into wrestling. And they say, well, I know it's tough and it's a tough business and all that. And it is, but I always tell them one of the toughest parts of it is the traveling aspect, because many of the wrestlers, excluding the ones who are flying on major jaunts from one city to another, just in driving in the territory, will put in 2,000 to 2,500 miles a week in an automobile, and that gets to be awful tough.
And that means,
I don't go that much.
That means they have to be away from their families quite a lot.
Yes, sir.
That's
they
a hazard.
Sure do. It just becomes a way of life of living in the ring and in a motel room and in a car, and that's about it.
You've been around wrestling for quite a few years. I know that working at a job, you have good things that happen and bad things. Can you tell me any bad things that you can recall right off the top of your head that's happened to you?
Well, there have been 2 or 3 things that stick out in the mind. I think one of the things that you always have to be leery of, and that is the fact that I weigh 173 pounds, and I'm dealing with guys that go 230, 240, and up, and that sort of thing. And you never know when some guy is going to get triggered, and you say the wrong thing or the wrong thing happens when he's going to take it personal. And we had an incident that, as a matter of fact, took place on Championship Wrestling when the Dream Machine kind of got
upset, right?
Yeah, he thought we were poking fun. Well, maybe we were. I don't know. But he kind of took exception to it, as a matter of fact.
Well, as a matter of fact, Lance, we have this on tape. Why don't we right now take a look at this tape when Lance Russell kind of got his head knocked down to the canvas by the Dream Machine.
Yeah, I remember.
Lance, I know that's not really a good thing to relive, is it?
Oh, it's better from this vantage point
sure.
than it was from down there on the floor looking up at that guy. At that time, the Dream weighed about 270. He later dropped down to about 240, but that was still plenty big.
A good thing happened to you one time. You had a chance to get even with a guy that now has kind of had a change in attitude.
Over here, because I got something to say.
Well, wait a minute,
all
Lawler.
you people have been, now listen, I have listened to you tell these lies about me and all of these things, and I'm not going to stand for it.
Right. Lance Russell playing the King and Jerry Lawler being Banana Nose. Unbelievable.
Really,
that was fun to watch.
It really is fun to look back on that particular one. That was quite an experience we had, Randy.
Anything else you can think of that's been good that's happened to you around?
Oh, well, I have met so many wonderful people, and the great thing about it is we, as you know, we promote in 6 different states with the Championship Wrestling promotion. And the marvelous thing is that I don't care whether you're in Evansville, Indiana, or the Boot Heel of Missouri, or over in Lexington, Kentucky, or down in Tennessee or Mississippi, you still run into folks that love wrestling.
That's for sure.
And that's one of the nice things it continues to be. There's a lot of them that don't like some of the things that happen, and they will sure let you know about it. And that's okay, too. They pay their money, and by golly,
they have the right.
You bet your life.
All right. Well, tell us a few things about the man that's probably more famous than any wrestler in the country, the King, Jerry Lawler.
Well, Jerry is kind of a unique individual in the fact that he has not only this capability of being an enormous athlete, he has a tremendous ability to take punishment and dish it out. He has been, without a question, very, very successful, one of the top 3 or 4 wrestlers in the world. He has a great mouth and sometimes has no hesitancy about shooting a barb or 2 at anyone that's around. But the really interesting thing about Lawler is, in contrast to that, you would never expect it, Lawler is an incredible artist.
That's right, and he can sing, too, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, he does. I like his art better than his singing, but...
I do, too. We have an interesting video on Jerry the King Lawler, so right now, let's take a look at the... loving it. The superstar, Bill Dundee.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah, that's for sure. He's earned his name, superstar, hasn't he, Lance? For sure.
Yes, sir.
All right. Handsome Jimmy Valiant. He's a little crazier. Yeah, Mercy was a household name, as a matter of fact, wasn't it, when Handsome Jimmy Valiant came through town. What do you know about Handsome Jimmy?
Jimmy just blows everybody's mind. His was blown a long time ago, I think, but he is so colorful, and the guy is quite an athlete, too. Boy, he is one of the iron pumpers, and he didn't build that body just on imagination. He did it by working on it, and he creates excitement wherever he's around. You know that.
Handsome Jimmy, he can sing, too, can he? I think he had a song, Son of a Gypsy, isn't that right?
Yeah, Son of a Gypsy, which was a fairly big seller, as a matter of fact, for Jimmy.
I'm sure, especially in the Memphis area, because I think Handsome Jimmy kind of gave the King and the Superstars some problems in the popularity race as far as wrestling concerned.
And that's not the only problems that he gave them. He gave them problems in the ring, too, because you never know what the guy's going to do. He is absolutely one of the wildest. I was going to say refreshing, but I'm not really sure that's the right choice of word. Jimmy he is something different.
All right, we have that tape, as a matter of fact. The boy from New York City. Want to take a look and rock and roll, Lance, with handsome
boy from New York City.
Hey, I tell you, the fabulous ones, Stan Lane and Steve Kern. Excitement for sure. They come in, the spotlight's down on the ring, and the music is blaring, and the girls and the guys, everybody love Stan and Steve. How do they join together?
Well, they had the greatest teacher in the world, a guy who actually had more savvy in the ring and out of the ring than any wrestler I've ever known, and I'm talking about the fabulous Jackie Fargo, who put them together. Stan and Steve were both great single wrestlers, and they had fine accomplishments, but what Fargo did was put them together and add that great spark of entertainment.
The Fab, Stan and Steve. You said one time Jackie Fargo was a man that was often imitated but never duplicated. But I'm telling you one thing for sure. This great team of the Fabulous Ones, I love to see them, and I think everybody that's ever seen the Fabulous Ones really get a kick out of them, Lance. They're great, for sure, aren't they?
You got that right.
We're taking a look at some great wrestling tape. I want to ask you a few more questions, if I could.
Sure.
I want to ask a question that a lot of people have asked over the years. They ask if wrestling is entertainment or is it sport?
Well, I don't know that today, really, Randy, you can separate them. I would say that it's a little bit of each, and I think it's very apropos coming out of the Fabulous Ones. Stan and Steve represent two outstanding athletes. These guys are pure athletes. When you hear coaches in the media talk about athletes, well, you're looking at two of them in the Fabulous Ones.
Sure.
But what has happened is that with the Fargo influence to them, they have added that entertainment showbiz quality to them that draws people to coliseums and arenas throughout the entire area that they wrestle in. I feel it's the same way about our business. To be perfectly honest with you, wrestling competes with television, with the motion pictures. It competes with baseball, with football, with whatever sport happens to be in, basketball, whatever it may be, so that everybody is in competition. So what you have got to do is to produce a mix of the sport and entertainment in order to keep the people paying the dollars at the box office to come out. They enjoy it enough to pay the money to come see you.
Tell us real quick, how popular is your Championship Wrestling television show?
Oh, that's something that I can't believe. I swear, I remember in the city of Memphis when we hit 70,000 homes, I thought, boy, that's incredible.
Oh, my goodness.
Now we are up in the top 10 of all programs in the city, doing 174,000 homes in the last Arbitron. So
and that's Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. That's not prime time, is it?
No.
That is unbelievable. We'll talk to Lance Russell to close the show. We'll take a break and come back right after this. Lance, I can't believe 30 minutes flew by just as quick as it could.
I can't either, man. I want to go back and start all over again.
Wish
or make
we
it
could.
an hour show or something. This has been a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah, really.
Took a lot of look at some of the great wrestling stars all over the country. What I want to do now, Lance, first I want to thank Jarrett Promotions for letting us have the tape. And I want to say a special thanks to Randy West, who put all the stuff together, did a superb job.
Randy does all of our video, and he really does a magnificent job. And it's good to work with a guy as professional as he is.
Fantastic. Also, I want you to summarize, why is wrestling so popular?
I think probably, Randy, and I know there would be disagreement from newspaper writers and commentators and psychologists and so forth, but I think that it has to do with that wrestling really encompasses more of the emotions. There's the anger, the laughter, the enjoyment, the hatred, the good guy, the bad guy. It stimulates the emotions of so many people. I think that probably is the reason they like it so much.
Every once in a while, it doesn't happen too much, but every once in a while the people get a little bit too involved.
Ooh, isn't that the truth, though? They start throwing things and all of that. And they'll let you know when they don't like something. They don't like the referee. They're going to tell you in a hurry.
They'll tell the referee that for sure, won't they, too? Well, I'm telling you. I want to talk a little bit, if I could, Lance, about your television show. It's successful, as we've said earlier. It's so successful. Why is your championship wrestling show so successful? I think it has something to do with Lance Russell and Dave Brown.
Well, I appreciate that, Randy. We, of course, have been doing it for a pretty good while, but the thing also that is important is the combination of ingredients, features like you just got through showing right there, and the action of the wrestling and the interviews.
We thank you for being with us, Lance. I'm telling you, it's been a joy to work with you. Thanks a lot for coming to Jonesboro.
Well, I've enjoyed being here.
All right, we're out of time. Bye-bye.
Thoughts?
Pretty doggone good. You saw me make a comment to us internally. I thought it was very professional, very well done. Of course, good questions. And you put, again, you're a master of homework, of getting things prepared. And whether it's this show or whether it was a card on TV or whatever the case may be, you've always done it. And it showed there, even in your younger years. Love the hair, by the way.
Jet black, man. Jet black. I got a haircut. I don't know if you noticed, but I got a haircut today, as a matter of fact. I'm not wild and woolly. I would like to say that I appreciate all the people that commented to that. That was very important to my career. I plug Randy West on this show every week. Obviously, as a producer, he was fantastic. Producers like Adam Dunn and Randy West and so many down the pipe, people that have produced you over the years. It's just so important. That was the first television program. It wasn't a professional wrestling show. It was a talk show. It was the first one I ever did in my life. That I'm thinking now, because the Fabs were around 1982. So I'm thinking it was 82. So I would have been 21 years old. And so that is the very first Randy Hales production. And was that not fun to watch, or was it just me? That's a little
I never saw it before, so absolutely. And it was, and again, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm shocked at the professionalism, but I could see where you got the highest grade ever, because that was television worthy and quality in any market in America. Good stuff, buddy.
Thank you very much. And I'm afraid, because I said, because I was confused by the video, and I was just confused by the video. I'm afraid Shane went away and didn't see that. Oh no, there's Shane Russell right there. Let's put him on there right now. His comment on there. You did great, Randy. Dad enjoyed coming over and doing that. And Shane is a year or two older than me, and we see this a little different. I'm almost, and Shane and I haven't argued about anything ever in our lives, but Shane and I talk a lot and have spent time together. I've always thought Shane came to Memphis that day. Now, Lance wasn't paid to do that. I asked him if he'd do me a favor. I was his backup announcer, ring announcer in Memphis, and I was just a kid that he mentored. And I told him about the project, asking if he would come. I said, how much would it cost me to get you there, Lance? And he said, make a A. He said, that's the cost, make a A, and I'll come. But I think Shane came with him, and I think that's the first time I ever saw Shane in my life. I didn't make a very good impression with Shane because he doesn't remember that trip. He does not remember that trip, but I almost 100% positively remember Shane coming in there. Now, I'm going to do some editing as we go, so I have about 6 more videos. We're not going to have time for any of them, but we got into the one subject that I think we can deep dive in and basically spend the next 20 minutes or so talking about. And Adam, I want you to put 2303 image back up there. And this was the card we talked about from December the 5th, 1983. And again, I don't know how familiar Michael is. I'm sure over the years that he has heard some of this. And I'm going to try to break this down for everybody to understand. This card did a gross house of $40,000. $40,000 gross house. The talent would get 26% of the net after taxes. Now the taxes on a $40,000 house would have been $2,800. The percentage to pay for the wrestlers were $10,400. Now you would start by making up a pay sheet, and you would start with the main event and you'd work yourself down. So I did a mock payoff. This is not legitimate. And in 1983, I was not doing payoffs. I probably did payoffs for the first time in 1986 when I was assistant for Jerry Lawler. But I just wanted to go through this. Now, $40,000 house, the payoffs to the talent, $10,400. The talent list would have been this from the main event down. It would have been Jerry Lawler, Randy Savage, Road Warrior Hawk, Road Warrior Animal, Jimmy Hart, Jimmy Cornette, Steve Kern, Stan Lane, Dutch Mantell, Austin Idol, Dennis Condrey, Norvell Austin, Bill Dundee, Rick Morton, the Moondog 1 and 2, Roger Smith, Don Bass, the Dream Machine, Porkchop Cash, Terry Taylor, Bobby Eaton, Coco Ware, Robert Gibson, Art Cruz, Tom Pritchard, Paul Morton, Jerry Calhoun, Buddy Landell, and Angelo Poffo. Also, Lynn Ditton, Tony Anthony, Plowboy Frazier, and Danny Davis. Also, salary people and miscellaneous people would have been Lance Russell, Dave Brown, Randy West, and Eddie Marlin, who would have, their salary would have been taken out of Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, Nashville, and Lexington. But that list would be Lance, Dave, Randy West, Eddie Marlin, Ken Parnell, and Randy Hales, and Guy Coffey. My part there would have been $50. I'm estimating Ken Parnell would have been $100, Eddie Marlin $300, Randy West $300, Dave Brown $300, and Lance Russell $300. And again, money would be taken out of Louisville, Evansville, and Nashville for that as well. Now, you have to look at the rent, and the rent, I'm basing it on a percentage basis, and maybe around $7,000, thinking that transportation costs $1,000 and newspaper cost as well. Now, the way I would do it, I would start and would write down how much money to pay for the wrestlers. In this case, it's $10,400. I would put in the calculator $10,400. I would then do divide it by 34 people, and that average is $305. However, not everybody would get $305. So this, as I did a mock payoff tonight on this card, and this is what I went with. Jerry Lawler, $800. Randy Savage, $800. This is 1983 money. Hawk, $800. Animal, $800. Jimmy Hart, $300. Jim Cornette, $200. Kernan Lane, $800. Dutch Mantell, Austin Idol, Dennis Condrey, Norvell Austin, Bill Dundee, and Rick Morton, $250. We get down to the referees, and the referees, Paul Morton and Jerry Calhoun, $150. Opening match on the card, I give Buddy Landell and Angelo Poffo both $150. And as I looked at the inflation calculator, Michael, that Cornette always does in the inflation rate back then, as we looked at 1983 from now, it's just so interesting. This $40,000 house today would have been today $123,562. Would have been $120,000 $562 house, and that's the inflation calculator. Example of that I thought was very interesting, my biggest payoff for one night ever was March the 7th, Monday Night Memories in 1994. I was paid $1,000. Today, that same $1,000 would be $2,800 as now. We've never, and Jim Cornette does a wonderful job at that. He keeps tremendous records, and honestly, on that sort of thing, I didn't. But I've done payoffs. I knew the formula, knew the percentage and sort of thing. So how much of that have you ever heard? Are you aware of? And how important do you think that is in our goal of teaching Memphis wrestling? Is that my question is, Michael, is that good information or is that too inside information?
I think in this day and time, people want to hear things like that. The formula sounds very similar to what Nick Goulas was doing when I started with him. And he sort of laid that kind of thing out to me one day. He actually wrote it down and said, okay, this is how I do it, and so forth and so on. But my salary, and again, with Lance and Dave, I don't know, exactly know. And of course, they are talent that are paid for by the company as I was. It's a locked fee. That I was paid X number of dollars. If I was doing a TV taping, I was paid X number of dollars. If I was doing a show on camera, I was paid, X number of dollars. If I was just doing interviews, I was paid X number of dollars. If I was just doing ring announcing, I was done, again, and it was more of locked in. But the boys, their payoffs depended on butts in the seats, and so you went a little bit more in depth. The thing that I wondered in just your figures, you the $800 was the biggest amount, but you gave several people that big amount instead of, say, a Lawler who was on top getting 900 and somebody else getting 850 and somebody else getting 800 and somebody else getting 750 and right like that. I guess it just didn't get as intricate as maybe I thought it was.
Well, here was my philosophy. Let's put the card back up there, the newspaper card back up there, and I believe that is 2303, Adam. As we look at the actual, I believe we have the newspaper ad, and it says triple main event. And honestly, that third match from the top, I didn't treat as a main event. Again, this is not Jerry Jarrett's payoff. I don't have that information. This is the way I did it based on the formula that they all use. But in my eye, this is how I always figured payoff. What drew the money? What drew the money? Obviously, what drew the money here was Lawler and Randy Savage, that was built tremendously over a year's period of time, several years period of time, and also the Road Warriors, who was the hottest thing in the country against the hottest team in Memphis, the Fabulous Ones. So to me, do you agree with that, my philosophy there, Adam or Michael, that the people that drew the money, Lawler, Savage, Fabs, and more, the Road Warriors, do you?
Absolutely. But why was Austin Idol's picture put on the TV or on the newspaper ad?
I don't know that. I don't even know who does that. So would you not have gone with Lawler or Savage or the Road Warriors or the Fabulous Ones?
They're your top draws, without a doubt, even then.
Right as we come back and as we lose that right there. To me, that's just absolutely just fascinating. And again, the payoffs for wrestlers. Now it's different. Some people come in with a guarantee. I remember in the 80s that Austin Idol would come in the territory, and to come in, say he was working for Ron Fuller in the Continental, and say in the Memphis territory was down, and they called Idol and say, we have an idea that leads to you and Lawler. And they say, and he says, well, okay, but I need a guarantee. I need $300 a night. And they have to pay him $300 a night, no matter what the house is. Because
whether there's 10 people or 10,000 people. Yeah.
More likely the territory's down. But at the same time, when the territory gets up to $40,000, you can't still pay him $300, even though that was the original guarantee, or
Right.
he has this. He has quit and left. And again, some people, I just don't know. It'd be interesting to know, what do you think, knowing Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, if same figure that you can't go over $10,400. So how much? And remember, I learned, first person I learned was from Jerry Lawler. No, that's not true. From Jerry Jarrett, explained it. But then when I was Lawler's assistant, then you know how he just didn't like business details. And so he just wouldn't do them. Then he said, why don't you do them? You know the formula now. So going with what I feel drew the money, I went $800 a piece with Lawler, Savage, Hawk, and Animal. And I first of the Fabs, Lawler, Savage, Fabs, and the Road Warriors. At first, I went with $1,000 for every one of them. That was my first payoff that I did on the sheet. And then I'm thinking, I think that I had the opening match making $75 and that's Buddy Landell and Angelo Poffo. Angelo came from Lexington, Kentucky, and at the time, probably Buddy was living in Nashville. I would think. I'm thinking that's just not fair because they wrestled 6 or 7 nights. So I'm thinking $800 for all that talent, plus the Road Warriors. You had to pay their airline ticket, and you also had to pay Idol's airline tickets.
Yeah, and a hotel probably overnight.
Right.
You're bringing them in, early. Yeah, I wonder now, as the mathematics of that transcribe, I wonder then with Lawler and Jerry Jarrett being partners, what would be their split, or would they just take their percentage and put it in a bank account and then pay the bills, if you would, the expenses all along the territory, and then at the end of the month or the end of the year, or whatever the case may be, write themselves a dividend out of the company? Because there weren't any stockholders, were they, Randy? I don't think there were.
No, just the percentage that changed over the years, and it eventually became, but that's a way later years, it became 50-50. For a long period of time, Lawler had 15% of the whole territory, 30% of Memphis. It just changed over the years. But as I did the expenses, again, this is a mock as an exercise to explain how this works. Let's just say that I'm right, that the profit for this show, that was a $40,000 house, was $17,800. Again, they might have been, I didn't figure anything for the ring, but Buddy Wayne was probably included on a payoff for this as well that I had left off of this. But say $17,000. So then that would have just gone into a profit. Then at the end of the month, you do a thing, and Bob Wright would do this day number 1 to day number 31st. So this is something that I ended up dealing with in the row as the general manager and the sort of thing. And this is, a lot of people wasn't privy to this part of the information. So January, let's use December 1st, say Jonesboro, Arkansas. So December 1st, the income to the office was a booking fee because it was an Eddie Marlin town. So the office got $150. And then say the second is Jackson, Tennessee, another Buddy Wayne town, and say the booking fee was $350. The next day would have been a Memphis. Say the profit was $17,000 after expenses. And you add that up. So, and then you have the running tally of all the expenses. You put the profit of Memphis and you put the different profit. Then you get your bills, like all that sort of thing. So much comes out of the specific town, like I told you. Memphis, we took Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, and Nashville, all the salary people would come out of all those towns, Memphis, Louisville, the weekly towns. But then you just get a profit. Put the gross income, write that down, subtract the expensive, and get a profit. Then say Lawler's 50-50 and the profit was $20,000, $10,000 a piece. And so that's how it happened. And not a lot of people had knowledge of this. A lot of people had an idea. And, wrestling promoters, as we did the talk so many times about Nick Gulas and his reputation for paying the boys and the Tennessee office reputation. It's a business like any business. All the wrestlers knew they would get in main towns 26% of the net gate. In the spot shows, it was 30%. It's discretionary income. It's somebody's opinion. Jim Ross talks about this, about pay-per-view rights. It's up to the promoter, or if the booker, very few bookers, and I was one of them, had the responsibility of doing payoffs in this territory. There's no right thing, because every wrestler on this card, every one of these 34 guys would think they would want that $800 and not want that $150. You have to have a feeling about the business and what's going on. And you have to listen to the reaction of the people, the fans, and you have to, and it's in your gut. You have to determine. I feel now, Michael, you're going to have to help me because I feel I'm rambling. But I'm trying to explain how people get paid and then how people might get upset. From 100, Coco Ware and Bobby Eaton, two great guys. I figured them at $150. Mm-hmm. Man, $40,000. Does that sound low? Yes, it does. But does Jerry Lawler and Randy Savage and the Road Warriors, does it sound at $800 on a $40,000 house? Does it sound like they're overpaid? No, not at all. If anything, and this is where Jerry Jarrett and Lawler was different, and I was more in the middle, closer to Jarrett than Lawler. Jerry Jarrett was a 16-person crew guy, or 18 at the most. Right. Jerry Lawler liked the big cards, the 34 and 36 people. The more people on the card, the less everybody's going to make, include maybe not the promoter, because if the promoter don't go over the percentage, basically everything's going to stay the same, as far as the promoter's concerned, but it affects the boys big time, even if you add two guys. Does that make sense? And we're going to go full screen.
It's just a formula. Yeah. I mean, it does make sense, but it's and again, as I listen to what you're saying, the way you break it down, that was how Nick, I'm okay. That was how Nick Gulas explained it to me when I first started. And he was explaining it to me more so that I would be understanding of, you're doing this job, you're getting paid this. These boys are having to draw as you would, the butts in the seats. So what you're talking about, that's one of the reasons that he told me from day one, and Jerry Jarrett, when I came to work with him, would say the same thing. Your job is to put them over. And then that was the thing. And again, when I look at what Lance and Dave did throughout their careers, I never thought that Dave or Lance were ever putting themselves in front of any of the wrestlers as far as trying to create their stardom, if you would. But I cannot say that about the commentators in this day and time, because I think there are commentators in every wrestling company that I watch whose egos think that their presence in the show means as much or as important or more important than the boys that step through the ropes. And I don't buy that. I think that's cheap.
Oh, it's bullshit. It's what is. All right, folks, a little recap that I will be in surgery next Mondays. As far as the show, the Power Pro Wrestling Watch Along, there will be a show next Monday night, and Adam Dunn will produce and star in and lead you guys into a show. So the Power Hour watch along will be next Monday. There will not be a show next week. No show next week on a Tuesday, as I will be recuperating for that thing, and I'm going to grab my thing. We're going to go a few minutes late, not much late, talking Memphis wrestling. No show next week. I want to talk about this past Saturday's big games, and I want to go back and see if you missed them or if you got them right. In the number 7 Texas against number 13 Oklahoma State, Texas won, defeated Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 title 49-21. Who did you pick, Texas or Oklahoma State? Michael St. John.
Texas.
Number 1 Georgia, number 8 Alabama for a SEC title. It was a victory from the Crimson's tied over Georgia 27-24, and we know that last week, I think you missed this one there, Michael St. John.
I did. I picked Georgia and on this show and on my radio show and in the newspaper here as well. So yeah, I did not think Alabama had the depth to hang with Georgia, and Georgia came back late, but Alabama, give them their props. They won the football game and they broke a 28-game win streak for those mighty dogs.
Unbelievable. The one that has everybody talking. Even there has been threats of lawsuits from this one, Michael St. John, as again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think people are interested in this. The big controversy with Florida State and Louisville. Of course, Florida State won the game, won the ACC title, and they're undefeated. And of course, number 2, Michigan and Iowa. It was Michigan winning. I want to throw in that in the Sun Belt, the conference Arkansas State is in, Troy State and App State. Troy State won. We have a graphic on this for the first time in several years. Arkansas State University will be going to the Camellia Bowl in your state in Montgomery, Alabama. We have the graphic, Adam, for the Camellia Bowl as we will be playing Northern Illinois Saturday, December the 23rd at 11 o'clock. Now, the college playoffs, the Final Four is this, Michael St. John, and this is the controversy because there will be no undefeated Florida State. Again, threats of lawsuits, and the college football playoffs is down to this. It will be Michigan against Alabama and Washington versus Texas. So did I cover, as you're the football expert, and did I cover everything we should cover here?
Oh, I think so. There were some other conference championships. I think Washington, Oregon last Friday night, a conference championship in the Big 12 or in the Pac-12 rather. Everybody was picking Oregon. Oregon was favored by like 7 or 8 points by the spread in Vegas. And of course, Washington dominated the game and beat Oregon for the second time in a row this season. It's hard for any football team at any level, high school, college, pros, to beat anybody twice in the same season. And the Huskies did that. My question is, how competitive is the Big 12 to begin with? I don't think the Big 12 is as good as the Big Big 12 is, or the Pac-12 is not as good as the Big 12, which is of course Texas beating Oklahoma State. I don't think the Big 12 is as good as the SEC. I think the ACC falls in there somewhere. I'm an Alabama guy because I was born and raised in Alabama. I was the first member of my family not to go to Alabama to college and cheer them for the black and go and go to Vanderbilt, which just lost 14 players in the transfer portal yesterday. So they'll have to rebuild a team that wasn't that good this year to begin with. But getting back to the subject matter, I think, I put my money hat on as far as the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're the third oldest franchise radio station that carries Alabama football in the country on Fun 92.7. So I enjoy Alabama's success, and I do root for him, and I do think Coach Saban is the best college football coach of this era. But I think Danny Cannell, who I do not agree with a lot on ESPN, said it right. I think Booger McFarland said it right. It's supposed to be decided on the field. Like it or not, whether Florida State's quarterback, whether they won with their quarterback or they won with the quarterback from Slippery Rock, it doesn't make any difference. If somebody gets hurt and they still win and they're unblemished at the end of the year, by golly, they deserve a seat at the table. But I think where the failure came with the committee is I think they could have hit a grand slam home run on their last 4-team play. And if they'd have come out Sunday and said, hey, the jury is deadlocked. We have Alabama and Florida State on equal footing in our estimation. So we're going to put in an extra game 2 weeks or a week from this coming Saturday. We're going to do an extra game in Atlanta or in the Superdome in New Orleans between Florida State and Alabama. Whoever wins it is number 4 in the playoff. Then they go on and play in the 4-team playoff. I think that would have been a home run. They could have sold tickets for $10,000, and TV rights would have fought for them.
Now,
but it would never happen.
Jeff Frogwheeler, we're going to have to deal with this because it's the second time on the show that he said this, and I said we're not going to deal with it then. He's obviously there's a lot of haters for Alabama. This is his comment. If you put his last comment up there, Adam. Even beating Georgia, Bama don't deserve to be in playoffs. Saban's pockets deep. Did you give Michael St. John to the Saban crybaby fund? So
I went at the game. So and I didn't spend my money on their game. So no, I did not participate. But to his point, and I see where he's coming from. You know, I do have a son that is in college, is a coach in a college football scenario. He is at a Division II school now. He was in Division I for over 11 years at Florida State. And he always said to me, he said, Dad, Coach Bowden says the University of blank holds more weight with the NCAA in the state as far as state money and grants, so forth, prestige. University of trumps blank Tech, blank State, blank A&M, except in 2 states. Penn State, of course, is the Pennsylvania State University, and Ohio, which is the Ohio State University. So they are technically the universities of. But he always said they had more power and more clout. And here's the deal with the committee. You don't put Alabama in after they beat Georgia and ended a 28-game win streak and just continue to improve after the Texas loss. There's going to be couches burned and riots across the nation. You don't put a Florida State 13-0 in, they're going to burn Tallahassee. So pick your poison. And I think the clout of Alabama, and I think to that, the comment that Jeff has made is absolutely correct. The clout of Alabama, the draw of Alabama, put them in the playoffs. But to Danny Cannell's comment, and I don't like Danny Cannell as an announcer because he's always on the wrong side of what I think, except in this case. He said it's not. He said it's an invitational. It's a beauty pageant. It's not a play-in tournament. If it were a play-in tournament, the 4 teams that deserve to be there includes an undefeated Florida State. When Texas showed up on the screen as number 3, I went, holy shit, they're putting Alabama in. And that's because I felt that it would be, I really felt, and I do feel Michigan is the best football team in college at this point in our season this year. I thought it was Michigan, Washington, because of they beat Oregon twice in 1 year, and Oregon's a good team. I thought the number 3 team, without a doubt, would be Florida State at 13-0. And then I thought the debate and the controversy would be a once beaten Texas, a once beaten Alabama. Texas wins the Big 12 championship over Oklahoma, but Alabama kicks Georgia in the SEC championship, who was rated number 1. Where do you rank them? And so I think that would have been, I think when the committee decided, hey, Florida State's got a hurt quarterback. We got a way of shutting them out. Let's use that. put Texas at 3, Alabama at 4. That's, I think, the way they were thinking. I don't agree with it. I'll be honest with you. And as somebody that lives in Alabama and has to hear it and breathes the same air as every Alabama fan in the world, my take is on Alabama fans is that Alabama fans, there's 102,000 people at Bryant-Denny in a home game. 100,000 of those people never stepped into a building at the University of Alabama other than a bathroom or Bryant-Denny Stadium. They never went to school there. They didn't get a degree there. They don't give money there. And so it's a sidewalk alumni, i.e. Notre Dame, i.e. the Dallas Cowboys. And that's what Alabama football has become. Florida State, in the meantime, the people you see at Doak Campbell, the people you talk to, the people that are there have a vested interest in Florida State, not as only a fan, but whether they went to school there themselves, they have kids there, they live in Florida, they support the school through their taxes, whatever the case may be. There's a difference in the fan bases. But Alabama's clout got them into this. And I still think if you're going to have a playoff, you whatever happens on the field, the play of the game itself, it should play. Now, somebody did a bracket with the 12 teams. If this year was next year, we had 12 teams. Well, you know what? If we had the bracket, there are 4 teams in that 12 bracket this year that would have gotten their butt kicked in the opening round because there's not 12 great teams in college football, ever. There's not 12 great teams in the NFL, ever. I always thought, and I'll say this to my grave, the optimum number for a college football playoff in football is 8 teams. 8 teams, period. There's never more better than Missouri at 9 would get their butt kicked with playing the number 5 team. Liberty would be in there at number 12, and they would play Georgia. Come on. 8's optimum. They're doing it the 12 deal for the money and the TV rights. We'll see how that shakes out next year. But I guarantee you, in the next 2 or 3 years, people are going to be bitching about the 12 team because there's going to be 4 or 5 teams every year that are going to get their butt kicked in that first round.
I've really enjoyed the last couple of weeks us do this, and obviously we're working our way to the bowl system. And when we come back in 2 weeks, remind everybody we'll be here next Monday, or Adam will, with the Power Pro Show next Tuesday night. There will be no talking Memphis wrestling. Well, it's been a heck of a show. Missed Pat Trammell, missed Chris Ellis, and we wanted to talk about Chris because coming up. Now, we've already said my big news. On the 10th, I turned 62 years old. On the 11th, I have surgery to remove this tumor. And certainly prayers out for all that to be great. Prayers go out for Dutch Mantel to get better. But certainly prayers for Chris Ellis because he gets married. Chris Ellis, our own Chris Ellis, gets married on the 9th. So that will be Saturday. Chris Ellis getting him married. Your thoughts on this show today. Also, anything else you want to say for you had your opening remarks, your final remarks after telling you this was an unusual show today, but I really enjoyed it. I edited the hell out of it and eliminated probably 6 videos as we were going to talk about Wolfie D, who turns 50 Thursday. Happy birthday to you. Sorry I missed your video, but we really got into this video, and I thought it was a phenomenal show. Your thoughts, Michael?
I enjoy every minute of it. Anytime I told you that in an email earlier or a text earlier today, Randy, anytime I get to do a show with you and the boys, Pat and Coach, I absolutely love it, and I appreciate the opportunity. This was a very special day to me too, and I'm going to do a little shoot here if you don't mind.
Okay.
Today would have been my mother's 100th birthday.
Oh,
and before, when I was talking to you, you and I were texting earlier in the day, I was literally at Maple Hill Cemetery in Huntsville, paying my respects to my mother. And the thing that hit me the most is she lived to be 88. But the thing that 100 years ago today, my mother was born. How much of what we have in our world today on a daily basis that we use and do was even around 100 years ago. There certainly wasn't television. There certainly wasn't the internet. There certainly wasn't radio even. It was in its infancy, and not every town had a radio station. In fact, in 1923, there were only 42 radio stations licensed. So we've come a long way. I remember my mother telling me when she grew up that their house on Arm Street in Huntsville, where she was born in a house delivered by a midwife, that it was one of the first houses in that section of Huntsville, Alabama, which is a small cotton town back then, that had running water. Not hot water, running water, which means they didn't have to go outside to use the restroom or put it in a chamber pot. So 100 years means a lot. Your mom is your mom. I know every one of you folks that are with us today know, love, and respect your mom. And someday maybe you too will get to experience the event that you can mark the anniversary of the 100th birthday of the woman that was responsible for you being here. Very special day for me.
God bless your mother. God bless you. God bless everybody here at Team Hales. And God bless the United States of America. Thanks to Randy West. Thanks to Adam Dunn. Thanks to Pat and Chris, who wasn't here today. And I hope you guys that watch this show get something out of it. Think of me as I've got more going on than just as Michael knows and Adam knows. A lot going on in my life now. So hopefully the birthday will go good and the surgery will go good Monday, and the issues that I've had the last several days, we can get those taken care of and everything will be fine. I love you, Michael, and I love the audience. Thank you very much.
Love you, Michael. And to Adam out there, wonderful job. Thank you. And to our audience, love all you guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll even start talking about Christmas. God love you, Randy. Happy birthday, and our prayers are with you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. We're gone.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.